very autumnal, and it's nearly Halloween. So I'm going to do my Halloween walk now, get it in early, because I'm going to be working on Halloween weekend. This is Studham. Now Studham, in my experience, is a place where the local children are well known for telling tall tales. But there are some interesting tales from this place. It might just be Smurf Central. It's a lovely morning, isn't it? I was sort of half hanging on for some thunderstorms for my Halloween video. Now my companion for this walk is Haunted Luton and Dunstable by Paul Adams. I've got a couple of his books. He's a good local author. Now I've read lots of accounts of this, this Smurf we're going to see, and also of something far more sinister going on over at Caddington. We're at the very far end of Studham Common here. Actually, Studham is more common than it is village. But it's a lovely little place. My brother used to live here with his kids. And that's the old schoolhouse just coming up ahead. It was in this area that back in 1967, a bunch of schoolboys experienced a small blue otherworldly creature, which has been recorded in most books and accounts as a possible alien encounter. But I might beg to differ. We'll have a look along here. Now, they call it a little valley. And just off behind the school there, you've got Valley Road and Valley Close. And I can see the beginnings of a valley just starting to come through behind the old schoolhouse there. I think it was actually this stretch here that those kids saw that little blue thing. Let's have a walk down to the end. Let's see how much of a valley we've got, and I'll tell you what they saw. We're definitely standing in a little valley just out the back of the village here. Fields on that side. And then this backs onto the school, the modern school. And up at the top of the hill behind the school is the church. So we are definitely sitting at the bottom of a little valley. Now, it's apparently in what's described as the dell, which is that bit we just walked through, that in 1967 this bunch of 10-year-old schoolboys, I don't know if they were playing hooky or what, might have been a weekend, who knows, they were out here playing in the woods, and by some accounts the first thing that happened was there was a big blue flash of lightning hit the ground in front of them. At least two of the accounts I've read do involve this whole incident starting with a flash of blue lightning. Lightning or not though, all the accounts talk of a blue and yellow smoke. So this blue and yellow smoke appeared, and then the kids, they saw a little blue figure wearing a hat with a white beard, a long forked beard that went down either side of his chest, and around his waist he had strapped some sort of little black box on a strap, some sort of little contraption, scientific instrument or whatever. He was hanging around fiddling with this little contraption in the bushes, and at the same time the kids claimed that they could hear some sort of unintelligible alien chattering going on in the bushes around them, as though there were more of them. Now they carefully approached this little blue Smurf type thing, and as they did so it disappeared, again in a puff of smoke. It might have been here. Disappeared in a puff of smoke and then reappeared just ahead, a little bit further down the dell. So they followed and went and had a look, and it did the same again before it eventually disappeared completely. Now they ran back to their school and reported this incident, and the teacher, whose name I did have, I can't remember that, but anyway, their teacher dismissed the whole incident as over-imaginative kids just trying to get some attention. But it interested the UFO community enough that there was an article, there was a journal at the time, the British UFO Journal or something like that, actually did a feature and some interviews on it. Here's an artist's impression of what those kids saw. Now you can kind of see why, with the hat and the little electronic box and whatever, and the blue skin, it might have gone down as a UFO incident, an alien incident. But actually to me, and I don't know if this is just because to me it sounds like a Smurf, I've been thinking this might be more of a Fae encounter. It might be the fairy folk or something, you know, rather than an alien. I mean, the Smurfs, they had minor technology, didn't they? Whatever that little black box is, it might just be Smurf technology. And this little pointed hat that he's been given in this drawing, that doesn't actually tie up with most of the accounts that I've read. Most of the accounts that I've read say that it was more like a bowler hat with a wide brim. I can well imagine a Smurf wearing a bowler hat. Not so much an alien. Makes me wonder. Of course, then you've got to stop and think, well, are Smurfs technically fairy folk? I don't know. I'm not sure anybody's done the proper research on that. I tend to think Smurfs do count as fairies, yes, because they're small and they live in little mysterious villages that you can only see if you've been eating the local mushrooms. Now the Studham Smurf there, that's just a nice little silly tale. A lesser known silly tale, which I thought I'd share with you. A gentle start, shall we say, because now we're off to Caddington. Just off the side of Caddington, on a hillside that overlooks the M1. It's quite a scary place. It's got various demonic, satanic connotations to it. I'm not going to be driving there particularly quickly. Well, this is all new. Last time I was here, there was no houses, no playgrounds. This was an old Vauxhall test track where they used to test out their cars. And even aside from the sinister nature of the woods that we're about to go and find, this site has always been a bit scary for me. Because when we started riding motorbikes and driving, about 16 or 17 years old, there's a road back there called Chorley End Road, which a mate of mine used to live sort of just at the end of. And we used to scare ourselves by driving down that road, because not only did it remind us all of the sort of road where people get abducted by aliens, but also there were stories. Now bearing in mind this was an old derelict test track with a few storage buildings and warehouses on it, but it was all abandoned. And the story at the time was that a tramp had hung himself in one of the storage units, and being an abandoned site, it was so long before anybody found him that his neck had rotted through and his body had dropped to the floor, but his head was still hanging there on the rope from the ceiling. So always been a slightly scary place for me, but I just want to find my way out of this new housing estate onto the public footpath that goes down to the woods across the farmer's field. I wonder if I can cut through there. And I'll tell you what's what. I can hear the M1 already. There's the M1, very nearly there. I get the impression actually if I was to skirt around the outside here, I'd end up in the same place, but for now I'm just going to carry on walking through the woods a little bit, because for some strange reason I feel a little bit safer in the woods. I think I've worked myself up into a little bit of a fear about this one. I've been to plenty of haunted places and scary tunnels and blah blah blah. There's never been a worry, and the The Studham Smurf back there, of course, that's not a story to be even remotely scared of. But these woods here have got a really unpleasant dark side to them. Alright, so let me tell you what's been going on here over the years. 50 odd years ago, in the early 1960s, this area saw a bit of a heyday of satanic activity. Of course, there's Clophill Church, where we've been before. That was in the early, well, throughout the 60s and the 70s, but that all kicked off in the early 60s, about 63, I think. And it was the same time as all of the desecration of graves and the animal sacrifice and all the really disturbing strangeness that was going on at Clophill Church. It was also going on right here in these woods. This is the first part of the tale. There's a second part to come as well. Again, it was a group of schoolboys who were up here playing, and they came across a small clearing. I'm kind of hoping to find this clearing. In a way, I'm also quite keen not to. They came across a small clearing in these woods, and these woods aren't very big, where a low gnarled tree had been sort of used as a bit of a sacrificial altar, and there were horse parts and cow parts, heads, internal organs spread all over the place. And when the police came to investigate, they ended up taking photographs of eyeballs hanging off the trees. Now, some people have attached that story to cattle mutilations, which is widely believed to be a kind of an alien thing, isn't it, amongst those sort of circles. Although this one there was obvious signs of human activity, and the way these animals were mutilated and cut up, it was nothing like these precise surgical ones you hear of on ranches over in the States. This was just local weirdos worshipping the Dark One, and quite probably in the process deliberately scaring the locals. Very similar to the stuff that was going on at Clophill. And this has actually continued on and off. The most recent disturbing finds in these woods were in the 1990s, which isn't all that long ago. It was going on here for quite a long time. And I'll just quickly show you on this map to give you an idea of the sort of historical and religious landscape that we're within. There's Kensworth. Right, we're just here. Here's Caddington. Now, we're on this hillside just here. Now, you can see directly next to us, this will be Chorle End Lane, I guess. Sorry, Chorle End Road, which we just came down. Here's the M1. Now, just down the road there, you've got Saxon. Here you've got Belgic. Here you've got Roman, Paleolithic. There's so much old ancient stuff going on around here. It really makes you wonder that in these woods, which are overlooking this valley that the roads go through, there are loads and loads and loads of old settlements and religious sites on that side of the valley too. It does make you wonder what sort of horrific practices they might have got up to. We're right down the bottom of the hill, next to the motorway now. Just the other side of the motorway is Luton. Now, the second tale of horror that comes from these woods involves a group of young lads who lived over in Luton. They came through an underpass one day for a picnic, passed under the M1, emerged in this field, and head off the hill up there towards the woods. Now, bearing in mind this was a good decade after those first instances of satanic rites going on in the woods that had been discovered. These boys came walking up here looking for somewhere to stop and have a little picnic. As they approached the woods, they sat down, found a little spot in the grass, started eating their sandwiches, and one of them started walking away from the group. He'd seen something just at the edge of the woods here. The others all wondered what it was he was standing there staring at. As they looked round, it took them a good few seconds to process what they were looking at. But by their accounts, it was an 8-foot tall creature, something like a cross between an owl, a bear and a man. It had red eyes and huge wings, and it was watching them. It was interested in them. It knew they were there, and it started to move towards them. Now, similarly to the slightly less scary Smurf at Studham, again it was surrounded with smoke and mist. It moved towards them, and understandably, these young lads, they just legged it. They legged it back as fast as they could down the hill there, back towards Luton. Now, those combined stories of these woods and this little hillside here out the back of Caddington, and also the old stories of the hung tramp from back when I was a teenager and we used to hang around up there, does make this place feel pretty creepy to me, and I'm not easily spooked like that. Now, weirdly, that creature that they described, this cross between an owl and a bear and a man, and many have said since a moth, it does conjure up images of the American Mothman legend, doesn't it? The Mothman, which was a very similar creature, described as being a very similar thing, quite often a harbinger of doom. If you see it, something bad's going to happen. And I know there's where can I fight my way through? Here we go. I know there's one particular very famous story about the Mothman where a big road bridge collapsed, loads of people died, and the Mothman, apparently there's photos. Have to be a little bit sceptical about those sort of photos, but apparently there's photos of the Mothman himself sitting on top of the bridge after it collapsed. It does sound a hell of a lot like whatever that creature was that they saw here, doesn't it? Although I'm more tempted to think personally that that creature they saw, although contemporary with the Mothman, I think personally, given the black masses that seem to have been going on in these woods for a very long time, I think that those kids might have just seen a demon. Maybe the night before there'd been some people down here conjuring up who knows who, you know, from the underworld. Maybe that underworld demon was still hanging around when those kids turned up. Now, I've just come off the footpath. Do you remember I mentioned that when the police came in 1963 to investigate those initial disturbing reports of animal mutilations and ritual activity, they found a low gnarly tree, didn't they, which was supposedly being used as a sacrificial altar. And what we might find. Nah, didn't like it. Back to the path. It's weird because when you're out of the woods, it's a lovely bright warm day and you can see the sun coming through, but these woods are cold and it just adds to my inbuilt fear of them. I won't pretend I'm not slightly pleased to be back out of those woods. I wonder if these people living in this new housing estate, I wonder if any of them have got any clue as to the dark doings that their woods just there are famous for. I'm trying to figure out whereabouts on this housing estate the old warehouse was where they found the hung tramp. Because doubtless his ghost is haunting that house. It's got to be, isn't it? I've just spotted the radio tower. That gives me a very good idea as to where the old warehouse was, where the tramp hung his own head off. It was right next to that radio tower, so it's going to be these houses over here in this corner. These here, by my rusty-brained estimation, is probably about where that warehouse sat. So, the residents of 35 to 51 Mallard Crescent. Good luck with that tramp ghost. Happy Halloween. See you later.